Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Max, and I'm doing another Max Reacts. Crazily enough, I'm going to start wildly speculating and screaming about stuff, because honestly, it's a ton of fun, and I like my own voice. Today, we're doing something a little bit different, though, so I'm going to jump straight into it. I'm actually going to check out a Dungeons & Dragons book called Mythic, Odyssey of Theros. It's actually got released 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, something like that. It's actually based around the Magic the Gathering mythos, a plane called Theros. For those wondering, Magic the Gathering is owned by a company called Wizards of the Coast, who also own Dungeons & Dragons. There's actually quite a lot of times where there's crossover on here. A lot of the magic systems are interestingly similar, which I really, really like. But this is a particular book that's based around kind of the stories of the plane called Theros and all the characters that we see pretty consistently. This is the gorgeous alternate art version that you can see kind of Erebos hunting down Pluchronos, which is kind of like the infamous Hydra. Now, what's interesting about Theros is it actually combines the Roman and Greek mythos together. You know, it's a combination of them. You have heroes like Achilles and Ajax kind of floating around. You have Erebos here, god of the dead, and similar to that. So you've got a lot of really, really cool kind of crossovers. And I'm just going to kind of run through the book and tell you all about my favorite things about it, because I read through this book and I think it's just absolutely gorgeous. What it adds to Dungeons & Dragons is brilliant. And look, I'm just going to kind of jump straight into it and show you all myself why I think this is brilliant. So I'm just going to jump into it. Check out the really, really cool stuff. Obviously, you got the Welcome to Theros. There's some really cool, interesting reads in that. What happens about this book is they actually add a lot of religious aspects to it. A lot of things like piety is what they have, like heroic drives you can kind of see down here. It's to say that you are a hero and you have a particular god, and that god is much more tangible in the D&D in the Theros world, and you actually do things that directly impact on that god. They can give you a whole bunch of benefits, things, you know, you got supernatural gifts up here. This is for the iconoclast. These are all like backgrounds that you can kind of choose based on the god or the hero that you're creating. So Nyxborn's kind of like their afterworld, the pantheon in the Greek gods, kind of like what's the giant mountain that they all live on? That's kind of like Nyx. So to be Nyxborn means that you're born of the gods, literally. You've got an oracle, maybe you're a speaker of the gods. You can kind of see down here. I'll just move around a couple of things. There's a bunch of really, really awesome twists and turns that they give you. The oracle is one of my favorites. It gives you these things called piety points, which is to say that you're an oracle of a god. A god has sent you down to be their voice among men. And the more that you kind of showcase your willingness towards the gods, the more piety you get. And you can spend that on various things. Or it's more like a level system, I should say. So for example here, when you have piety +3, you can cast augury. It's a spell that you get. When you're at 10 plus piety, you get divination as a ritual, so you can kind of see things that are happening. At 25 plus, you get commune. Means that you can, once you do so, you can cast commune as a ritual. Once you do so, you can't do it until a long rest. You can't be surprised, provided you aren't incapacitated. Commune again means talk with your god, maybe get some guidance, things like that. And then when you're 50, you get a permanent stat increase, which is really, really awesome. Now, how you get oracle piety is completely based on your god. Some gods are gods of war, so the more that you fight and battle and hurt people, that you know the more piety you get. Some are based on knowledge and intelligence and influence and things like that, and you get the ability to kind of like, as you spread the word of your god, they give you these piety points. You can also lose these piety points by doing things against what your god would want. And I'll kind of get into more detail of that as I go through the gods themselves. There's a couple more races. I mean, humans, obviously, that they're in everything. But some awesome, awesome new races that actually Theros allows is you've got centaurs. You've got Leonin, they're kind of like cat people. You've got minotaurs, satyrs, so kind of like your Mr. Tumnus from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and the Tritons, which are merfolks. I think that's about it for these ones. Now, what's really interesting and different about these particular classes in Theros is they all actually have an attack based on their race. Minotaurs literally have horns, and they can benefit from that. Centaurs have the ability to kind of trample. Leonins have giant claws. So they actually give them all, as well as kind of regular traits that you would see in the Dungeons & Dragons world. We've got claws here. Your claws are natural weapons. If you hit with them, you deal slashing damage equal to 1d4 plus your strength modifier increased, instead of bludgeoning damage normal for an unarmed attack. So it actually benefits your unarmed attack, which is really, really cool. As well as, some stereotypical upgrades. Really, really cool. Absolutely love it. Minotaurs are easily one of my favorite things kind of ever in Mythos. And you can see here we have, strength and constitution, so they're definitely your warriors, your fighters, your barbarians, things like that. And they lend themselves to a temple called Mogus. I'll kind of get into, so you can see Myth of Mogus and the Minotaurs. Mogus himself is a Minotaur. I'll kind of jump into that a little bit later. Satyrs is just a bunch of fun. They're easy like bards or maybe even rogues, little lockpickets, things like that. Tritons, again, warriors. They have strength and constitution and charisma. So, they're lots of talking. But jumping in, we've got some new subclasses as well, which is absolutely awesome. I'm actually playing an Oath of Glory Paladin. I'll kind of jump into that in a moment. We've also got a subclass for a Bard, which is really, really cool. This Bard is an interesting level of power. It kind of hits its power level at level 6, and then you might want to kind of subclass post that. Now, the reason why is because unlike other classes, this particular Bard gets 2 skills at level 3 and also gets 2 skills at level 6. So normally instead you get 3, 8, or 3, 8, 12, 16, 20, something along those lines. So you get them kind of spread out. These gives you some really early powerful supporting kind of abilities. But then your next one's at 14. So it feels like after level 6, you probably want a subclass afterwards. But they're called the College of Eloquence. They're all about talking. It's all about giving inspiration, giving bardic influence and things like that, which is really, really cool. Oath of Glory, I love this one so much. Hone the body, discipline the soul. It's kind of like the macho man. You are the guy in the gym all the time. You're only out there for glory. You're there to battle. You're there to have fun. You don't necessarily, the stoic person that thinks, you have to, lean towards the god in everything and this is right and this is wrong. No, if it's impressive, if it's something that you can brag about, the truth should never get in the way of a good story for these guys. They just kind of buff themselves up and they absolutely love it. I'm playing Bald Paladin Goliath. This is all he wants to do. Literally, his first action towards the party was there was a door in his path, and rather than try and lockpick it or knock or open it up, he says, door, we will beat door, and he just punches it, and he uses a smite. He uses an actual smite just to make sure the impressiveness of him punching through this door is really known. And I think that's brilliant. Some of the spells like heroism and stuff like that. So they're actually all about just being really, really cool heroes. So look, you can grab this book yourself at generalgames.com.au or come in store and check out a bit more of this information. I'm going to give you all of it, which kind of go through some of my favorite things about it. You've also got a new background called Athlete. Again, it's kind of like the Greek Games, which now are turned into the Olympics. But it's just a background that says that, you're literally an athlete. That's what you do. So, someone like a Oath of Glory would most likely be an athlete that did really well. They think they're the best at the Usain Bolt of their particular events. And they go into the world and think, well, I'm the best at this, so I'm going to be the best at everything. Cool. Now, moving on to the actual gods themselves. This is a really, really cool story campaign or setting, or maybe as your character that got transported away from Theros for whatever reason into the world, you've got this kind of connection with your god. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do. So you've always got a divine relationship. What's your connection towards your god? These are all the gods available and kind of what they float around. You'll notice that not a lot of these gods are necessarily lawful good, and there's only about 2 or 3 good gods in total. Well, we've got Heliod. Let me just fix up that. So you've got Heliod, who's lawful good, but we all kind of, if you know the story behind that, lawful good's a bit of a stretch when it comes to him. Eros, god of victory. He's the god of kind of fighting and wanting to win. Again, chaotic good. Karametra, neutral good. She's very much about life and the balance of ecosystems. And then you've got Nilia, god of the hunt, who's again a neutral god, similar to nature. There's not a lot of good gods in here. Again, not a lot of evil gods either. It's mostly neutral. There's a lot of neutrality when it comes to Theros because everyone's out there for their own good. Gods, very similar to kind of the Greek and Roman aspect, are very for themselves and what's the best thing to happen. Now here, again, we're looking at worship, your clerics and champions. That's what I was talking about. You can have a god that kind of follows you around. Piety, there's a full expectation and explanation on what piety is and how you can kind of get that and lose it at the same time. And then it goes into these really cool sections where we actually have the individual gods. I'm just going to quickly go through a couple of these. And it tells you what these gods are. It tells you how they can be a nemesis for a campaign. It tells you what you benefit from being their champion. It tells you why you would be their champion. Who you don't like as their champion. And everything in between, which is absolutely awesome. So I'm going to quickly jump on to, you can kind of see all the gorgeous artwork in here as well. I'm going to quickly jump on to Mogus, because he's kind of one of my favorites, and I want to kind of explain him a little bit more. But you can just see these artworks absolutely divine, even Krufix as well. And so there's ways of having these gods as kind of like the good heroes in your campaign, or the big bad evil guy in your campaign as well. And it tells why there would be the evil guy. And there's things like, maybe they're trying to take over some power from their own pantheon, and maybe there's an anger towards a god that they don't like, and they're trying to push towards that. Or on the flip side, maybe like someone just walked into their territory and they decided they didn't like it, so they killed them, or told their champion to kill them, and then someone else's champion then has to kill them, and then there's literally a feud and a war because someone just accidentally walked into their own little area. So jumping on to element OP. Did I pass Mogus? Oh, yes, Mogus would be here. I actually passed Mogus. So we're kind of going to go through an example of Mogus and what would be involved here. So for starters, if you're the champion of Mogus, you can see his goals here. The world is a canvas in which he paints his blood. So he wants to kind of fight and punish and war, and just like he thrives in the love of battle is what his big thing is, right? Now, you can argue that's kind of chaotic evil. It is to a degree, because he would rather kill people than kind of talk to them. But that doesn't necessarily mean he wants to just slaughter, even though he is the god of slaughter. He wants to fight them. He wants to beat them. He wants it to be known that he is the most powerful. And a champion has to kind of reflect that. You can see, importantly here, Mogus's existence is defined by his eternal struggle against his twin brother, Eros, the god of victory. So already you can tell that as a champion of Mogus, if anyone that likes Eros comes around, you're going to fight them. You're not going to like them. There's no way that you as a person or as a character can come across with someone with Eros and not want to immediately fight them or hate them or be, very wary of them for any particular reason. Mogus exhorts his followers to channel their hatred and rage into ever greater acts of cruelty and violence. He demands actions over words. So again, you want to be fighting people. You don't talk very well. If someone, offends you or dishonors you, your immediate response is just, well, I'm going to pull my sword out and let's go for it. We're fighting. They've got the full story of how he kind of originated, why he's a minotaur, all of these different things, which is awesome. And then it jumps into this section. This kind of gives you a bit more of the understanding of being a champion. It gives you backgrounds. It gives you, if you're a cleric, what domain you're from. Mogus's favor. So this is kind of how you would gain Mogus's favor, or even how you became a champion. So how did you first garner his favor? So a couple of different options. Maybe you were born under a blood moon. Your twin sibling is a champion of Eros, which is pretty funny. So just because your twin became a champion of Eros, you're now a twin of Mogus, and Mogus says you've got to go kill him, or at least fight him. Maybe you carried out a brutal vendetta, proved yourself violently in a contest of strength or endurance. Maybe you were just having a boxing match, or someone kind of tested your will and your mettle, and you just kind of accidentally beat them to death, unfortunately. On the flip side, you have no idea why Mogus chose you, but you hate people. You can see that one here. You have no idea why Mogus chose you, but his hate seeps into your being day by day nonetheless. So Mogus just said, you're going to start hating people. All right, my job here is done, and Mogus walks off, But you've got a couple, ideals when you're doing to Mogus, why he wants you, how you can progress. You've got earning and losing the piety. So again, if you defeat a champion of Eros, then you gain favor. Taking vengeance against a powerful foe, you gain favor. Burning a polis or a settlement to the ground, he hates polis as well. It's Ephara. So anyone that worships polis or temples that have temples towards polis, if you destroy them, sack them, burn them, you gain Mogus's favor. And desecrating a temple to Eros as well as as an offering to Mogus is also a benefit. So you say, hey Mogus, I'm killing Eros, please support me like that. Now, Mogus is a perfect god as to kind of like the evil person, or the big bad evil guy at the end of your campaign. Maybe Mogus has just got a bunch of his alkalites together to just start sacking some temples for no reason, and you want to defend that. Or maybe you're a form of neutrality within the other gods that turn around and say, hey, Mogus is doing some pretty messed up stuff. Maybe we should stop him from doing these messed up things. On the flip side, failing to carry out sworn vendettas will lose piety from Mogus. So he'll turn around and be like, what are you doing? You swore vendetta against him and now you're letting them go? You're not beating them to death? What's happening here? You're weak. You are a weak thing. Public displaying weakness or compassion. Again, like showing someone that maybe killing them isn't the best option. That's not how Mogus plays your game. And then again, rejecting a duel or a challenge out of fear. So, turning around and being like, you're weaker than me, I don't really want to challenge you. Totally fine. Mogus can understand that. You're stronger than him. Why would you waste your time fighting? However, there's a big, bad, a huge kind of challenge in front of you, and you're like, actually, I don't think I can beat that. I'm going to have to reject it. That's how you lose Mogus's favor. That's how he turns to you and looks at you kind of with a bit of disgust. Again, you get a bunch of really cool things. If you have 3+ piety, you can you can cast Wrathful Smite, really good attack. You can cast Blinding Smite if you're at 10 piety. It blinds your enemies when you attack them, really powerful again. 25 piety, you have advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. It means that, your hatred and bloodlust is greater than someone's ability to kind of like, turn you or make you run away or anything like that. And finally, all gods share this, but at 50+ piety, you get an increase to two particular traits or stats. They increase by 2 permanently. And you increase your maximum for that score by 2 as well. If you lose the 50 piety, you will lose this trait though, so do keep that in mind. So that's kind of how the gods work. That's how you are a champion. Obviously, there's a ton of different champions in here, from Nilia being very territorial, Frika, god of poisons, Phoenix, god of deception. Maybe you're a rogue or a thief. Perforos, god of the forge. Maybe you're a blacksmith, a big warrior that wants to put themselves in full armor. Maybe Thassa as god of the sea. People are kind of overfishing or hurting the sea, and she kind of picks herself up and says, well, hey, we got to change that. So you can make them the good character or the evil character. And because we're gods here, a lot of neutral things, what we would consider neutral, is still something that they would fight over. A human's just simply fishing to feed their family. Well, Thassa turns around and says, well, you've actually fished more than you should. Or maybe the technology that you've developed to fish more and fish more efficiently is hurting the oceans rather than, you're taking more than your fill. And that's something that Thassa has to turn around and fight against. Now, what's really interesting with these gods is that they can't actually interact with you directly. They're kind of locked into the Nyx plane, but they can send signs. They can kind of talk to you in meditations. They can guide you. They can send signs, which is really, really cool. So it's up to the dungeon master to kind of really explain that. We don't go into all the different major cities. You've got Akros, you've got Miletus, how they kind of function. You're looking at kind of Greece. You're looking at Troy. You're looking at Rome. All of these types of trading hubs and defensive structures and cities and everything around them as well. You've got your really famous characters from Magic as well. Brimaz of Oresco. You've got the Labyrinth, that's kind of like the Minotaur's maze for people that are aware of that. You've got the Underworld, so you've got the Realms of the Return, people that have actually died and come back from the Underworld. You've got explanations of how you can get to the Underworld, how you can come back from the Underworld, why people would go to the Underworld. Then you've actually got the Realm of the Gods themselves, which is awesome. And then you've got the explanation of how to kind of create Theros adventures. It gives you all the different kind of maps that you can use. It gives you kind of... this is Afara as kind of a villain, so it goes through and explains why Afara would be a campaign villain, and it goes through that with, I believe, all the gods as well, which is really, really cool. So it explains why they would be a villain in your particular campaign. Erebos, why is Erebos a villain? The god of death is a natural villain. He wants people to die and to take their souls into the underworld so he can take them, so that's a fairly easy villain to kind of create. But on the flip side, Heliod, why would he be a villain? He's supposed to be the lawful good god. He's supposed to, hold the holy word as high as possible in his regard. But at the same time, they easily become obsessed with upholding justice. So maybe you think of crusades or kind of, religious persecution where they say, hey, just because, you did steal some bread. Doesn't matter whether you're poor, you're homeless, whatever it may be, you stole some bread and that's straight to jail or losing your hand because of it. And they ignore the fact that you are in fact homeless. So, upholding the law to a fault. And maybe that can get overbearing, which is why Heliod suddenly becomes, an enemy of everyone. Eros, maybe to be villains, he's creating too many battles and he's trying to incite wars between people and play on people's hearts and emotions to be like, hey, that's your enemy and you should win a fight against them. And all of a sudden war breaks out across the land. So there's all these different ways and kind of explanations of temples and the big bad fights that you would have and all of these abilities that these gods would have. And you can even end up in the Nyx realm fighting these gods, though it would be very hard. It's definitely something that you can do, which is really cool. Again, unquestionably, Mogis makes an excellent villain. I don't think I have to go into too much detail as to why Mogis would be very good at being a villain. But look, I'm gonna kind of jump through. You can check out all of these yourself from grabbing the book. Again, I think we've got it online for pre-order or for ordering as well. This gives you a whole bunch of different temples and maps, which is really cool. But one thing that a lot of the Magic players are going to kind of get excited about is, oh god, look at that artwork. It's just gorgeous. Such beautiful artwork. One of the things that's going to be really cool about this is all the different kind of heroic monsters that you actually have to fight. These are monsters and creatures that you find within the Magic the Gathering world. You've got Acronian Hoplites. That's kind of like the Troy Hoplites or the Greco Hoplites. Fleece Mainline is a famous Magic the Gathering card that we can fight. Nightmare Shepherd, very similar. It gives them stats. It gives them abilities. Why are you fighting this particular creature? Fleece Mainline is actually the lion that Hercules killed and wore the pelt because it made him indestructible. So that's interesting. Like the card definitely plays very heavily on that, which is really, really cool. What's some other really, really famous cool stuff? The Cetessan Hoplites, Acronian Hoplites, that's just all the different armies that are fighting. You've got Hydras. Obviously, Hydras are very, very large in Greek culture. You've got Polukranos, which is one of the more famous Hydras within the Theros world, and it's kind of the big Hydra that, again, Hercules had to go and slay. So there's a lot of reference here to kind of Hercules' big trials that he did. Polukranos is very stereotypical. When you cut off the head, you get more heads. It has 5 heads to begin with. It has a bunch of advantages. As you start killing off its heads, it starts to get weaker and weaker, provided you kill them properly. I think it's weak to fire as well, things like that. Yeah, so for each head Polukranos has beyond 1, it gets an extra reaction that can be used only to make opportunity of attack, so it's always attacking you. 5 heads that get to attack repeatedly, which is really, really cool. What else have we got here? I know we've got some other really, really famous things at the back. Hithonia, that's like, that's the Gorgon. What's her name? I can't remember the Gorgon's name in Greek culture, but this is like kind of the Queen Gorgon. So obviously she kind of turns you to stone and things like that as well. Medusa, oh my lord. But that's kind of, Hithonia is literally Medusa, you know. You've got Erastus, the giant spider queen as well. It's just awesome stuff. So I cannot recommend this book enough. I've gone through kind of the big chunks of it and why I love it, but there's so much more information in this beautiful, beautiful artwork. If you're really keen on this, like I said, generalgames.com.au, come check it out. We've still got some of these gorgeous artworks for sale. They're $58 at the moment. We've also got the regulars. I know a lot of people prefer to keep their spines at the similar area, so they don't like the fancy versions. We still have those in stock as well, also $58. So I'm going to quickly pass you on to Ellie. She's going to tell you you can follow us on all our social medias and things like that and check it out. If you have any questions, jump into the comments below. More than happy to answer them. But otherwise, jump on this book. Tons of information, tons of different ways to play it. Absolutely love it for Dungeons & Dragons and Magic lovers alike. Yeah, that's it from me. I've done my reacting. I've done my spiel. We'll see you in the next video, guys. You have a wonderful day. Bye.
Hey guys, it's Ellie. If you liked that video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more interesting content. You can also follow us on Facebook for more information and events. Likewise, follow us on Instagram for those behind the scenes photos and videos. See ya!